Hello, and welcome to Warhammer 40k's Grim History from the Beyond. I am Zekthar.
And I'm Yuxin.
We are the chroniclers of all that was, and all that will be in the 41st millennium. We've seen the rise and fall of many empires, and this week we'll be looking to those mysterious Chaos Space Marines, known as Alpha Legion.
Yes, the insidious Alpha Legion, experts in subterfuge and covert operation, the Cloak and Dagger Legion of the original founding, and now followers of Chaos Undivided. While we will be going a wee bit dark this month because we are chronicling the hordes of chaos, fear not. We will try to keep it as light as possible.
Indeed, Yuxin. We will make treachery and murder as happy as possible. This month, we will be going over the Primarchs of the Legion, who the Chaos Gods actually are, and some notable characters, of course.
Of course, Zekthar. But to our dear listeners, if you like our stuff, please subscribe, follow, like, and comment. And I suppose if you wish to help Bob, you can click the support podcast button on any of our descriptions on Spotify.
Quite right, Yuxin. We now have the support for Bob up and running. If you like what we do, don't hesitate to plug in on Spotify.
Well, Zekthar, what's on today's schedule?
Well, this week we're holding true to the concept that we're going dark this month. We will be giving detailed aspects of the Chaos Gods.
Dash it all, Zekthar! I was hoping we could get past this point and simply assume the listeners know who the Chaos Gods are.
True, that would be nice. But remember, most of the fine folks that live in the Imperium of Man don't know that the Chaos Gods even exist.
That is true.
Yeah, but first, we must do something far worse than chronicling the dark gods of the universe. We must explain we chronicled something wrong.
Wrong? What do you mean, brother?
Well, in the last box, I couldn't remember when John Dillinger died, or what era he was from, and I knuckled down and said before World War I.
Yes?
Well, I was really wrong about that. John Dillinger was indeed after the age of Prohibition.
Which, by the way, you got wrong as well. Prohibition ended in 1933.
Indeed. But like I was saying, Dillinger was way past World War I. It is in fact documented that his alleged time of death was in 1934. World War I was over on the Terran 42 month of November in the year of 1918.
Well, I'm glad you faced up to it. Perhaps if you did more research, you wouldn't have this problem.
Oh, really? We're going to go there?
Well, no. I myself have some new knowledge about the Battle of Pluto that puts last week's concepts into a little more perspective.
Really? And why was that?
All right, brother. If you're looking for apology, you won't find it here.
Uh-huh.
What you will find is my thanks.
What?
If you hadn't asked so many questions last week about Dorne and Alfarius, I wouldn't have looked more into it and found the Battle of Pluto was documented by a historian by the name of John French, his book known as The Praetorian of Dorne. Here, he actually dictates the death of Alfarius killed by Dorne. Going back to last week, what I found sounded really weird, especially with the whole thing with Dorne slicing up the hands of Alfarius with his own spear. That is the one thing I do recant. Dorne sliced the hands off of the traitor with his chainsword. The more I read this chronicling, the more I agree with you, Zekthar, that one of the twins is, well, more than likely dead. But as always, the Alpha Legion and their strange Primarchs, who did he kill?
I haven't the foggiest. But what was that author again?
It was John French, and the book is called The Praetorian of Dorne. And for you fine listeners on Terran 42, you can actually find it on Amazon.com.
Wow, you're starting to sound like me. Sort of.
What do you mean?
You know, plugging in books on Amazon.
Oh no! I'm turning to the lowest of the low. A salesman.
Yes, good.
But we must get back to the Dark Gods of Chaos.
Yes. Now, for those that have been listening to us, we have gone over Xenos as well as Imperium. We started with the words from my dear brother, and I quote, "Everything is crushed by grim horror." Yet, even though we chronicle a dark universe, the dark gods of chaos are the lowest of the low, the harbingers of despair and depravity. They simply just suck. And to start off these low lives is Tzeentch. Now, Tzeentch is a god of chaos who represents the vitality and volatility of change. He is closely associated with sorcery and magic, as well as dynamic mutation and grand convoluted schemes. The domains of history, destiny, intrigue, and plots are his chief interests. And in pursuit of these aspects, he listens to the dreams and hopes of all, and watches their plans take form. He is not content to merely observe, however, and chooses to interfere in the strings of fate in order to fulfill his own unknowably complex schemes. Tzeentch is known by an endless multitude of names, but the chief titles he bears are the Changer of Ways, the Master of Fortune, the Great Conspirator, and the Architect of Fate. Tzeentch was created and sustained by the desire for change that is an essential part of nearly all mortal life forms. Almost all species are aware of the concept of a better tomorrow, and any form of dream, imagining, or resolution for change empowers the Chaos God. Like the other Chaos gods, Tzeentch is strongly interested in humanity due to the power and drive of the human spirit and how that uniquely ties into his interests. No creature is more volatile or more ambitious. The spark of wishing for a different existence can turn into a fire that can change a country, a world, and perhaps ultimately an inferno that can alter the fate of the galaxy itself. This is Tzeentch. Magic is essentially an expression of change driven by will, and as such is the domain of the Changer of Ways. Tzeentch is the greatest magician in all of the warp. Many of those draw to his auspices are sorcerers, while many others will be gifted with sorcerer's powers as a reward for their actions. Tzeentch's demonic aspects are essentially creatures of magic rather than any sort of conventionally understandable physicality. As well as an interest in magic, Tzeentch takes keen notice of all plots and plans. As the great conspirator, he is aware of all the dreams and plans of mortals. This is how Tzeentch is able to perceive the future. By being aware of all that is planned and all that may potentially happen, he can see all possible fates. Wishing to be involved with the fates of existence, Tzeentch directly and indirectly interferes in the fates of all things. His intentions are unknown, his schemes insanely complicated, and his plans so extraordinarily long-term it may be that none other than he will ever see the end of all of them. It is often claimed that Tzeentch wishes to extend his power over the Materium or to defeat his brother gods. However, it is the nature of Tzeentch to care just as much about altering the fate of a single individual. Tzeentch's schemes also often appear contradictory to those who discern them. This is because only Tzeentch can understand his own interests and perceive the full possibilities of each action. There was once a time when Tzeentch ruled supreme over the warp, his power superior to those of the other chaos gods. However, this state of affairs ended when the other dark gods temporarily set aside their differences and joined forces. During the final battle, Tzeentch faced certain defeat and cast a great spell upon himself. He crystallized his thoughts and body even as he was hurled against the endless mountains. Upon impact, his form was shattered into 10,000 pieces, each of which contained a fragment of his essence. These were flung across space and time, and while Tzeentch was forever weakened, legend suggests this event marks the beginning of the use of sorcery in real space. Despite Tzeentch's intense rivalry with grandfather Nurgle, he is nonetheless the chaos god with the most influence over the other major ruinous powers. At times, the chaos gods must unite and act in concert if their individual plans are to reach fruition, as they did against the Emperor at the time of the Horus Heresy. It is always Tzeentch who brokers these rare alliances of chaos undivided. However, Tzeentch never acts out of altruism. It can be guaranteed that every time he moves to unite the powers of chaos, he does so ultimately with his own unfathomable goals in mind. Now I believe you did research on the next god we will be discussing, Khorne?
Indeed, but pardon me, Yuxin. If we're going to talk about Khorne, I do have to say one thing before we get started.
Would that be blood for the blood god, skull for the skull throne?
Yes, but I believe it goes more like blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne. Pardon me, I couldn't resist. Anyways, Khorne is the oldest of the four main deities of chaos, and he is the god of war, violence, murder, as well as martial honor and strength. Every act of killing or murder in the material universe feeds and empowers Khorne. The more senseless and destructive, the better. However, Khorne is the god of bloody slaughter. He is also the god of martial pride and honor, and those who set themselves against the most dangerous foes and earn victories against the greatest odds he respects the most. A devotee of Khorne is as likely to be an honorable champion in combat as a blood-crazed slaughterer. Khornates take no artful approach to killing, seeking only to slay rather than inflict pain, because while the blood and death of their victims strengthens Khorne, their suffering actually empowers his nemesis, Slaanesh. Khorne's sacred number is 8, reflected in the organization of the god's demonic armies, the Blood Legions, and in smaller matters such as the number of syllables in the Khornate demon's name. Where possible, the Blood God's warriors will form up into squads of this number. Khorne's primary colors are blood red, black, and brass. Also note that the mark of Khorne looks vaguely like a figure 8, or a stylized human skull. The code of Khorne is simple: blood, and more blood. His only temple is the battlefield, his sole sacrament, the spilled blood of nations. Consciously or not, all warrior cultures pay Khorne homage with their acts of murder and destruction, from the headhunting tribes of the backwater feral worlds to the planet-conquering chaos space marine warbands of the World Eaters Traitor Legion. He looks well upon those warriors who slay their friends and allies, for they prove their understanding of the greater truth. Khorne cares not from whence the blood flows, only that it flows. Friends or enemies, all the dead are equal in the eyes of the Lord of Battle. Those Khornate devotees who let a day pass without committing an act of bloody-handed slaughter inevitably incur the blood god's displeasure. Khorne is said to have inherited a martial nobility and honor, and considers the weak and helpless to be unworthy of his wrath, which shows a strange, somewhat decent characteristic of the old god. To kill an opponent on the field of battle through honorable means is the truest way to find appeasement from the war god.
True, but Khorne would still enjoy someone stabbing their friend in the back. Truly the most dishonorable thing one can do.
Agreed, provided the blood continues to flow. Yet this whole duty and honor part of his persona causes his true hatred for Slaanesh. The Lord of Battle dreams of one day wrapping his scarlet fingers around Slaanesh's soft, delicate neck and crushing it until the younger god's depraved screams of pleasure become shrieks of agony, and then finally go silent with a satisfying snapping of godly bone. This sense of duty, honor, and self-sacrifice that fuels part of Khorne's existence is abhorrent to the followers of Slaanesh, and the very antithesis of their own philosophy of self-indulgence and pleasure-seeking. The demonic servants of Khorne and Slaanesh often attack each other on sight, and the mortal followers are often no less eager to join the battle. While his hatred for Slaanesh is immense, he also has a distaste for Tzeentch as well. For the war god despises the architect of fate's patronage of sorcerers and ambitious, scheming manipulators who strike from the shadows instead of in open battle. This intensifies the aggravation of Khorne has for Tzeentch. Likewise, Tzeentch despises Khorne's straightforward aspect of simply kill, and his causes much conflict amongst their followers. However, both chaos gods make common cause when the prospect of bloodletting is great, and Tzeentch's unguessable schemes can be advanced through their own mutual efforts. At such times, the star of chaos waxes strong in the mortal realm, as the two most potent of the ruinous powers temporarily join forces and send their demonic legions to war. Well, Yuxin, I know we got a couple more chaos gods to go through, but what do you think of these two?
Actually, I think out of probably the chaos gods, these are actually my two favorite, but for completely different reasons.
How so?
Well, for Khorne, it's just basically because, I actually don't like him as much as Tzeentch, but I like him better than the last few that we're going to talk about.
Right. Why?
Because he's so straightforward, and it's just blunt. It's just...
Because it's blood for the blood god, skull for the skull thrones.
Yeah. And then for Tzeentch, I really like his character because he's like, well, he's a conspirator. He's a manipulator. I mean, I know that's kind of horrible saying that you like somebody like that, but it's like the fact that I'm just putting it this way. I think if Alpha Legion was to choose one of the gods, it'd be Tzeentch.
Maybe.
Because in both cases, it's just like, yes, I have this plan. Will you ever figure it out?
Yeah.
Probably not.
To me, anyways, Tzeentch is kind of like Terran 42's Norse god Loki, but like on steroids. I mean, he's kind of a trickster, but at the same time, anyways, I mean, he takes that to like Jedi level.
And another thing I also like about him is because even though he basically got broken into 10,000 pieces,
right?
Even though they all ganged up on him, they still have enough, not necessarily respect, but like for him. I'm not sure exactly how to put it, that he'd be able to be an intermediary between all of them. It's kind of a weird concept.
I think a lot of that, though, also has to do with the simple fact, anyway. I don't think that I agree with you. I don't think they like him. Because I think none of the Chaos Gods really like any of the other ones. This is just more along the lines of like, out of all of them, we hate you the least. I think that's really what we're looking at with Tzeentch here. And I think one of the reasons why, anyways, he's able to go into these, talk to the rest of these gods is because he seems to be, like you said, he seems to be a manipulator. So it seems like he has some sort of a bond, anyways, with each of them, anyways, and is able to manipulate that just enough, anyways, to get them to work with each other.
He also seems to be like, okay, you have Slaanesh, Little Kid. You have the old geezers, Grandfather Nurgle, and Khorne. And you have the guy, for some reason, has an IQ of like 200 or something like that.
Well, Tzeentch is the second oldest, so you can't really call Grandfather Nurgle an old geezer because Tzeentch is actually older than he is.
Yeah.
I mean, the oldest god is Khorne, obviously, and then it goes...
Go ahead. I think he can just sort of... Maybe this is actually partially because of one of the reasons why he was able to, at one point, actually rule over them, is because he was able to actually manipulate them because he knew how they actually worked together.
Yeah, I still don't really... I don't know how accurate that is, man. Just the concept, anyways, of ruling over Khorne just doesn't make any sense to me.
Except for if you think about it this way, he would still be drawing on power like from the Necrons, even though the Necrons don't have blood.
Okay, so yes, Khorne does love the whole blood aspect, but he is still the god of war. That is his first and foremost thing. He feeds off of that. Now, also keep in mind, anyways, that both Tzeentch, Khorne, well, actually all the Ruinous Powers, anyways, the people that they really feed off of the most is humanity.
Yeah, and I'd like to say, though, the reason why he would probably gain more from humanity than anything else is because even during peaceful times, when there isn't a lot of killing and stuff, he's still gaining power because people are always looking, okay, the future, well, happen if I do this or that or this or that.
Okay, can you actually name a time, anyways, in humanity and in the Milky Way system where there wasn't war?
My
There's always
war. Is even on top of the wars that are going on. Like, I mean, it's like, okay, yes, yeah, these people killing each other over there, which, by the way, is kind of giving power to both of them.
Why?
And then the people over there that are farming the fields are also helping.
Well, wait, why is it helping both of them?
Because you have somebody who's constantly trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to change things so that I have the upper hand?
Okay, so that's just straight up strategy, anyways, which has to do with what was it? Oh, yes, war.
Exactly. So
anything that falls in the category of war, anyways, is Khorne's realm.
And Tzeentch's, if it comes to things like plotting and making plans, these things that we just mentioned,
Yes, but it's like a minor. It's like, okay, so if you take anyways a stream, right, and that stream's
Okay,
running
so
in one
let's put it this
direction.
way.
Hang on. It's like you take that stream and it's running in one direction, right, and then we make like this little tiny stream that runs off of it, anyways. That's what Tzeentch is getting, anyways. Whenever it comes to war, the giant stream is still running towards Khorne.
That still doesn't change the fact that he has gained power from it.
You're killing me, Smalls. You're killing me. This comes back to the whole splitting hair things. Okay, fine. Yes, a little bit of it does go to Tzeentch. You happy? But yeah, I think I do agree with you, Yuxin. Out of all the Chaos Gods, these are the two, anyways, that actually make the most sense to me. The other two are just kind of, I mean, you've got one that is quite frankly, anyways, I think probably the worst out of all of them. And then you've got another one, anyways, that has made the worst mistake ever. He's bought into his own con. But I digress. We do have to talk about these two guys. And I think you did all the detailing, anyways, on Slaanesh.
Yes. The name Slaanesh derives from Slaanesh, the god's name in the language of chaos, Sla meaning ecstasy, pleasure, etc., and Neth meaning Lord of or Prince of, hence the Prince of Pleasure. The correct adjective of things associated with Slaanesh, such as its worshippers, is Slaaneshi.
Thank you, Yuxin. I'm glad you described how Slaanesh is named. Perhaps you could tell us about the character of She Who Thirsts?
Well, I was getting there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Carry on.
Slaanesh typically appears in a form which is female on the right side and male on the left, with two sets of horns rising from its flowing golden hair. It can, however, assume any form, male, female, hermaphrodite, or asexual, but prefers male bodies. Its sacred number is 6. The symbol of Slaanesh combines the conventional symbols for male and female. It is also known by a multitude of titles such as Prince of Chaos, Prince of Excess, Prince of Pleasure, the Lord of Dark Delights. The Eldari call him...
Him,
it, thing, she, whatever.
Oh.
They call it Silentthresh, which means she who thirsts. Slaanesh was fully born at the moment of the fall of the Eldari. The Eldari will not describe their downfall to any member of lesser race. But we were there and saw the whole thing take place.
Unfortunately, we got to watch these dingbats squander all their hopes and dreams away because they simply were trying to find out what made them feel good. It was utter madness, Yuxin. It was terrible.
Indeed, Zekthar. The Eldari succumbed to extremes of experience, their senses so finely tuned they perceived the heights and depths of agony and ecstasy. Throughout a long period of decline, the intensity of emotions generated by the Eldari's excess began to coalesce within the immaterium. A new chaos power was being formed, growing stronger with every indulgence. This entity dozed fitfully, its dreams fed by the Eldari's deeds. These dreams linked back to the Eldari psyche, and the race plunged into further extremes. In time, the Eldari people sank to the lowest depths of depravity, and the sleeping power awoke. The chaos god of Slaanesh was born, and its birth cries decimated the race, drawing the spirits of billions of Eldari into the warp, to be consumed by the newborn god. The worst destruction occurred at the heart of the galaxy-spanning empire, where the warp erupted into real space. An area almost 20,000 light years across was engulfed in the very stuff of chaos, known today as the Eye of Terror. The Eye is an area of warp/real space interface, a vast open wound upon the very fabric of reality, constantly weeping filth and corruption. This event also slew all the Eldar gods except for Cain, who was shattered into many pieces. The Laughing God, Kegarak, and Isha, who was, according to Onecraft World, taken captive by the Chaos God Nurgle.
He didn't. Slaanesh did, but Nurgle has her now.
Really? What happened?
I'll explain after you're done with Slaanesh.
Okay. Well, anyways, Slaanesh has a neutral attitude to some of the other gods of chaos, as he is generally too caught up in his own pleasures to be interested in rivalries or alliances. But his particular enemy is Khorne, whose belief in pain and death is completely opposed to Slaanesh's principle of life of unrestricted pleasure. Now, Slaanesh is supposedly painfully beautiful. But now, Zekthar, I believe we will discuss the most horrendous of gods, Nurgle.
Yeah, indeed, Yuxin. Nurgle is the third oldest brother of the gods of chaos, and is the god of plague, disease, decay, despair, destruction, death, and rebirth. In particular, the emotion of despair in mortals empowers the plague god more than any other. To his followers, he is known as Grandfather Nurgle, because in his own strange way, he loves his subjects more than any of the other deities. This relationship of his followers differs from that of the other subjects of the chaos gods. The other ruinous powers take particular pleasure in deceiving mortals, damning them into their service by tricking them with lies and promises they know they will almost certainly never need to keep. They see their demonic followers, even their most powerful greater demons, as never having any choice but to do as they commanded. They view these demons more as slaves to darkness than co-conspirators with it. In their eyes, this makes mortal servants somehow more interesting. Nurgle, on the other hand, knows most of his mortal followers turn to him as a last act of desperation. But his demonic minions, most especially the great unclean ones, have genuine affection for Grandfather Nurgle and serve him out of love. Nurgle delights in reciprocating, reminding him as it does of a kind of cycle, and therefore the Plague Lord takes great interest and pride in the efforts of his demonic servants. The desire of Nurgle and his champions are one. Each knows that the great corruption is the higher purpose that must be served, and they do so with a great resolve and satisfaction. Nurgle is the chaos god most directly involved with the plight of mortals, particularly humans who suffer so acutely from the fear of death, perhaps the oldest fear of that species, or any other. While Nurgle is the god of death and decay, he is also the god of rebirth. Decay is simply one part of the cycle of life, without which no new life could grow. In the same way, Nurgle is also the god of perseverance and survival. While those who wish to spread decay and corruption are certainly amongst his followers, there are also those who wish to endure, to become resilient enough to handle the difficulties and opportunities presented by an uncaring universe. Many of these affected by Nurgle's poxes usually turn to the god in order to escape the pain and sheer despair caused by the sickness and disease.
One might think that if Nurgle focused more on the growing aspect of nature other than the decay of it, it might not be half bad.
Unfortunately, he does enjoy bringing things to life, but the things he brings to life are as twisted as he is. In his garden, Nurgle brews and creates all sorts of poxes and plagues, viruses and bacteria, to send out into the material planes. Nurgle teaches decay is inescapable, but also glorious. This knowledge is illuminated for those who follow Nurgle. If all things decay, each moment is a gift. Why not use these moments to shape what is to come and secure a place in it? Why sit idly by wallowing in pain and sorrow when there is so much to do and so little time in which to do it? As these thoughts race through the minds of the newly converted, it dawns on them. Their pain is deadened. Even with so many new afflictions, so much rancid corruption of the flesh, the suffering has abated and hope has arrived.
That's pretty twisted.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But don't worry, it gets worse. At some point or another, after the fall of the Eldari, Slaanesh captured one of the gods of the Eldar, Isha, the goddess of harvest, fertility, nature, life, healing, and growth.
Ah, I see. Here comes the explanation.
Indeed. She who thirsts dragged the goddess back to his realm and wished to do nothing but horribly evil things to her. But it was not to be. Nurgle waged war against Slaanesh to rescue the Eldari goddess. Why Grandfather Nurgle intervened is unclear, although some Eldari savants believe that one of the oldest of the major chaos gods wanted to give the youngest amongst them a good lesson about his proper place in the order of things. What is known is that Nurgle's demonic forces proved victorious, and he took the Eldari goddess back to his domain in the realm of chaos. A goddess of rejuvenation and a god of decay seemed an odd pairing, but Nurgle came to adore his new companion like no other being in the universe. However, he shows his love in the only way a Chaos God knows how. Nurgle keeps Isha imprisoned in a rusty cage within his personal manse in the corner of his plague gardens. It is there that he keeps the cauldron where he mixes the elements that create all of his plagues and pestilences. Nurgle tests all of his new virulent creations upon the body of his companion. As the goddess of healing and spiritual embodiment of health and growth, Isha can cure herself of these afflictions. But the Plague Lord gains an idea of their potency by watching how much power the Eldari goddess must expend to cure herself. If he is pleased with how hard Isha must struggle to conquer the disease, Nurgle releases a new creation upon some unsuspecting world. But if not, he starts over, working at his cauldron until he has something new to give to his companion. Isha accepts her lot stoically and fights back against the plague god's evil in the same way she once fought against Cain, whispering the cures to those new diseases into the universe so that mortals might know them and resist the hideous design of Grandfather Nurgle. Now, brother, I think we can agree that the major chaos gods are all ultimately after the same thing. Each wishes to overthrow the existing order of the universe and claim dominion over both the realm of chaos and the mortal world.
Yes, I agree, but how they go about it is another matter altogether.
Yes, indeed, Yuxin. If it was up to Slaanesh, he'd see all existence turn into a playground in which he and his minions could eternally explore new delights. Khorne desires nothing more than to claim every skull and drop of blood to use as mortar with which to build the foundation of his new kingdom. Tzeentch surely has his own plans for what a twisted reality reshaped in his image would look like, but he has not shared that with anybody. Perhaps he does not even know himself. To Nurgle, these alternatives are indistinguishable, self-indulgent fantasies with no sense of greater purpose or understanding of the natural order of things. To him, the ambitions of the others seem small. Reality will be remade. Both the mortal plane and the realm of chaos have ever been on the path of decay, and from decay comes death and endings. Endings, but not finality. It seems that Nurgle alone comprehends the meaning of this, and the distinction. Where his brother gods each envision a destination at the end of the path, Nurgle knows that the journey turns ever back upon itself in a loop, leading to rebirth, revitalization, and new beginnings. It is this fundamental divergence of views that sets Nurgle at odds with the other Ruinous powers, for it means that they are not actually working towards the same thing that he is. On the surface, it appears to the others that while the methods of each employ may be different, the end result is much the same: the destruction of the Imperium of Man, the enslavement and destruction of all mortals, and final dominion over all existence. This is, though, a superficial understanding. Differences come to light in many ways, like Slaanesh is content to allow plague marines to inflict grievous damage on an army through blight and disease, but is then perplexed when Nurgle's servants do not allow his minions of the Prince of Pleasure to play with the wounded, absconding with their shattered forms before delights can be explored. To Khorne, it is all well and good to work with his brother Nurgle in an effort to blast the Kroot colony into oblivion. Well, why he doesn't like the Kroots, I don't know, but there you go. But he cannot fathom why the Plague Lord insists on leaving their former homeland untouched rather than razed into a charred, lifeless stone. Still, these incidents pass, written off as some eccentricities of their jolly brother. Tzeentch, however, is another matter entirely. He refuses to give Nurgle his due, or to allow him to pursue his own path. He tweaks, twists, and diverts. His warps, redirects, and alters. The Lord of Change is unable to accept that which will surely come to pass. He is constantly looking to modify the rules to his advantage, so that his desired ending is the one that will come to pass, even if it means interfering with Nurgle's desires, no matter how small the consequences of those desires may appear to be. Nurgle knows that such meddling is pointless. He knows that the journey down the path does not stop, but the machinations of his brother are vexing and irritating just the same. The actions of Khorne and Slaanesh are a small inconvenience, but Tzeentch's game play havoc with Nurgle's plan, creating setbacks that are needless and counterproductive to not only Nurgle's own goals, but that of those of the other Chaos gods. Very little causes Nurgle's smile to dip, but Tzeentch seems to be able to provoke that reaction at will. When this universe dies and then rises again, it is one of the greatest hopes of the Lord of Plague, is that like the corpse god of man, Tzeentch will not be reborn with it. Well, what do you think of these four gods of the Ruinous Powers, Yuxin?
Well, to be honest, like I said, probably out of the ones that we've discussed so far, Tzeentch and Khorne are definitely the preferred ones in my mind. One of the things I find interesting is how I don't know how Tzeentch feels about Nurgle, because you would sort of think the fact that Nurgle's whole thing is the cycle of life, which is forever changing, Tzeentch would be
Right.
fine with that.
Yeah, but they look at change in two different ways. I think that's the biggest problem. And by the way, Tzeentch is not a big fan of Nurgle either. When it comes to the rivalries, anyways, of the gods of chaos, anyways, the biggest rivalry for Nurgle is obviously Tzeentch and vice versa. And then Khorne, it's Slaanesh. Although Khorne, anyways, because he's the god of war, has lots of people he doesn't like. But like Tzeentch. But yeah, so that concept, anyways, is I think the thing that really bugs both of them, anyways, is the way that they look at change, right? So when you look at Nurgle, anyways, his whole concept of change is like rebirth. It's beginning and ends. It's got this cycle. There is a continual flow of things. So while it is ever changing, anyways, it's a continuous flow, right? As opposed to Tzeentch, anyways, where he's always scheming. He's always trying new things and trying to create change. As opposed to Nurgle's like, no. It's going to change anyways. Just leave it alone. It's Nurgle, I think, looks at Tzeentch anyways more like somebody anyways that's a micromanager. Someone who's always trying to nitpick at things. He's like, stop it. Stop it. Just leave it alone. It'll do its own thing.
One of the things that pops in my head when it comes to Nurgle also is you see him like in the corner with his bubbling cauldron. He has the stick and he's stirring it back and forth. It's like, I'll add some Eye of Newt, some wings of bat, and
a hint of vanilla. Just for flavor. Yes, I could definitely see
along with some pestilence and
yeah, exactly. Well, after I did a lot of research on Nurgle, anyways, there's two things that kind of came to mind on me, anyways. One is that he's almost like he is the evil Santa Claus. He's full of joy and happiness, anyways. But every gift that he gives to anybody, it's like everybody, anyways, in the universe was bad this year, and he's giving them coal. But instead of coal, it's like a deadly virus that will wipe out half of existence. Here's your coal, you know. It's quite horrible. Like I said before, anyways, Nurgle is, to me, anyways, he has made the worst mistake ever. He has bought into his own con. But I think you'll agree with me though too. Anyways, out of all of them, anyways, the one I dislike the most, anyways, has got to be Slaanesh.
Yeah, same with me.
I mean, he's just it's that concept of self-absorbance. It's just, and the fact, anyways. I mean, I can understand why people follow him, but at the same time, anyways, it's just kind of like you'll never accomplish anything. And I think that's also one of the reasons why the rest of the gods, anyways, really don't like him, is because of the way that he views the galaxy. He won't really accomplish anything. Because if you rely on self and yourself, well, not if you rely on yourself, but if you only direct, anyways, everything towards yourself, you'll never really be able to accomplish anything. You do need other, people. It's kind of the way it works. But I don't know. What do you think about these other two?
Well, I agree with you that I really don't like Slaanesh by far. And part of it is that whole thing is like the person's so self-absorbed and they think that everything should be theirs.
I will say there
shouldn't be, even if it ends up being a hindrance to them by feeling that way.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the other hand, also it's because, first of all, the way that it's born, the different ways of pleasure were really twisted.
Well, yeah, it's like you take, anyways, what the Drukhari do, and we've kind of discussed the Drukhari, how violently evil they are.
Yeah.
And then you put that on steroids, and you have the followers, anyways, of Slaanesh.
Yeah.
Although I will say there is something kind of interesting about Slaanesh. Oh, okay, before I say this, anyways, there is one good thing, anyways, about the followers of Slaanesh, and those are the guitar gods, anyways, in Space Marines. I can't remember what they call them. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I have no idea what.
They're the musicians, anyways, that have the guitars and they have attached their armor, anyways, giant speakers.
Oh, the Noise Marines?
Yeah, those guys. I like those guys. It's like, we'll play a little bit of Metallica for you, you know. Let me dust off the old hacks, you know. That's the only good thing I can find out of Slaanesh. But I will mention, anyways, something that's kind of interesting. So, from everything that I've read, anyways, all the chaos gods of the Ruinous Power, anyways, they really are very interested in humanity, right?
Yeah.
Except for it seems like Slaanesh. Slaanesh, anyways, is significantly more interested in the Eldar. Which, what's that?
Well, kind of understandable.
Yeah, but it kind of begs the question, anyways, because, I mean, all these other gods are so focused on humanity. What is it, anyways, about the Eldar, anyways, that they just kind of gloss past? I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm sure that they still, you know, feed off of them, because I think they feed off of anything in the mortal realm. But still, why are they so focused on humanity instead of the Eldar?
Because humanity has, they have a shorter lifespan, for one thing. And so they go through all these changes and all these different desires and stuff much faster and absorbing it much easier in comparison to really the Eldari at this point. They're like pretty much always in retreat.
Well, there's also significantly less of the Eldari, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And the other thing is that aren't the Eldari still somewhat immortal? They have that whole goofy. Oh, what is it? It's like it's like a soul chip. I know that's not the right
they're
thing,
spirit stones.
Yeah. Thank you, soul chip.
It's supposed to save their soul from being consumed by Slaanesh.
Right, and then they plug it into the main hive world, anyways, and then they're reborn, aren't they? Through that.
Well, it depends on which one you're talking about. If you're talking about like the craft world and Exodites, the Harlequins actually are protected by the god Kegrok, and so they actually do not need those.
Oh, so what happens when they die? Are they just done?
I don't know.
Well,
I think generally the idea behind the spirit stones is if they die, not only will they lose themselves basically, but Slaanesh actually consumes them, which is probably why it focuses more on the Eldari than the other ones, because Slaanesh actually consumes the souls of the Eldari.
Right. But okay, so I thought, anyways, that soul stone, the whole concept of it was kind of like a battery. Okay, so when one of them dies, anyways, their soul stone, their entity goes into the soul stone, and they plug it in. And it's like they recharge the battery, and then they pop back out. Because remember, one of the things, anyways, that's interesting about the Eldari is that even before the fall of the Eldar, one of the problems the Necrons had, anyways, with the Eldar was that they were quintessentially immortal. It was always the problem with the Necrons. That's all they wanted. Immortality. But and no one would give it to them, so they're just like, well, kill everybody. And it's like shaking your fist, anyways, at an uncaring galaxy. Kind of miss the Necrons. They were pretty cool to talk about. But anyways, I digress. But isn't that kind of the way it works with the Soul Stones? It's almost like a battery. We might have to do some more digging on that. I honestly haven't really done a whole lot of studying on the way the Eldari work, especially the craft worlds. But I'm sure, anyways, at the end of the month, anyways, we can probably answer that question. Don't you think?
Yeah.
Okay. So actually, real quick, anyways, getting back to what you were talking about with Slaanesh. So does it seem, anyways, that like Slaanesh, anyways, is it's almost like any time that an Eldar actually does die and they don't have that soul stone, or they're not a Harlequin, then he pretty much consumes them.
Yeah,
their life force.
Their soul is basically now Slaanesh's.
So okay, so to me, anyways, that means that's probably why the other chaos gods don't really care as much about the Eldari. Because they know even if they're like fighting anyways, and so Khorne's getting, you know, a boost from that. He knows anyways that whenever one of them dies anyways, he gets no blood out of that. He gets no power out of that because it immediately goes to his most hated foe, Slaanesh. So
probably another reason why he doesn't like.
Exactly. Well, and so it also kind of makes sense anyways, like we talked about last week anyways, like the Leagues of Votann. It also kind of makes sense why they don't really care about them as much, because it's almost like their soul doesn't really pertain as much as a human soul. I think that has to do with the fact that they're cloned. If I recall right, that's kind of what we looked into last month. And then, like you said before, the Necrons anyways. Well, the Necrons are kind of immortal at this point. When you kill one anyways, it gets zapped back into another machine anyways and fights on. Or if you're Tzeentch anyways, you just have many different machines anyways that you can just kind of pop into. Okay, so here's one last question anyways. What about the orcs?
What do you mean, what about the orcs?
Okay, so the orcs anyways, I've always kind of wondered about this. So you would think anyways, Khorne, his best buds anyways in the galaxy anyways, would be orcs. Because all they do is fight. That's all they do. So if I was him anyways, why would I focus on humanity? You've got a billion greenskins out there anyways that all they do is just murder things.
Maybe it's because the majority of the energy that's consumed when it comes to the orcs goes to their gods, which in theory could beat the snot out of anybody else, in theory.
So they're actually somewhat protected anyways through Wog energy?
Through energy from Gork and Mork.
Right, which is, I think they call that Wog energy, isn't it?
Yes. I want to say yes.
So that actually protects them from Khorne?
Yeah, probably. I mean, the blood spilling part...
Khorne does get that.
Yeah.
Okay. But the actual, like, essence in their souls anyways, that doesn't travel to him. That goes just back through the Wog.
No.
Mork and Gork. Yeah. Although, if I recall right anyways, wasn't there an orc warlord that zapped into the Eye of Terror and ended up in Khorne's world? And Khorne liked his orcs so much anyways that after they all die, he regenerates them so they can do it again over and over and over again. I can't remember that orc's name, and he's like super stoked about the whole thing because all he does is fight.
Demon Killer or something like that.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite orcs. Just the concept of just like he is like in paradise. He's in Khorne. Everybody else, anyways, Khorne's realm is like this horrible madness, anyways, of destruction and murder. And this orc, anyways, is like sweet. But
we should probably move on now.
Okay, before we do though, I do have one more question for you. Why is it Nurgle's number 8? To me, that makes more sense because it's, you know.
Well, here's the funny thing is, okay, the sequence of numbers when it comes to the Chaos Gods, the 4 main Chaos Gods is Tzeentch is 9, Khorne is 8, Nurgle is 7, and then Slaanesh is 6.
I should add a couple extra 6s anyways to Slaanesh. But sorry. Couldn't resist.
Well, that's all the time we have for today.
Wait! What about Malice, known as the Hierarch of Anarchy and Terror, the Outcast God, the Lost God, and most notably, the Renegade God?
Oh yeah, we were going to talk about him. Malice is the embodiment of chaos, being indiscriminate towards destruction even of itself and its own agents. The nature of Malice's power is parasitic, as the Renegade God grows in power only when other ruinous powers do. Malice's sacred number is 11, and his favorite colors are black and white.
Indeed. His name is whispered quietly and with fear even by the most depraved, the most evil, and the least sane of the worshippers of chaos. In eons past, Malice was cast out from the bosom of chaos by the other chaos gods, or else abandoned them of his own volition. No one really knows for sure. In any case, Malice's relationship with the other gods of chaos is a strange one. All chaos gods pursue purposes that are wholly their own, yet only Malice occupies a position so antithetical to the success of his own unfathomable creed. To be a follower of Malice is to be a Chaos warrior bent upon shedding the blood of other Chaos creatures. As such, Malice is both feared and hated by the other Chaos gods. Malice's worshippers, sometimes called the Doomed Ones, are loathed by other servants of Chaos. They are outcasts, beloved by neither the friends nor enemies of Chaos, dependent upon the least whim of their patron deity. Few worship such a god. Fewer still live long in his service. The bonds that tie master and servant ever drain upon the soul of the warrior. And it is a rare man or woman that can loosen the bonds of Malice once forged.
Unlike the primary Chaos gods, Malice can be summoned directly to the Materium, provided enough moral sacrifices are given and he is given a body to demonically possess. The followers of Malice unleash their wrath upon any they encounter, be they of the Imperium, Xenos, or fellow followers of Chaos. Captives are routinely ritually sacrificed. The Sons of Malice proudly adorn their vehicles with helmets of slain Chaos champions. Now, one might wonder who the Sons of Malice are, and that is a very interesting question.
Indeed, Yuxin.
The original name of the Sons of Malice was erased long ago from the Imperial records, but they were loyal ones. One of the 20 Space Marine chapters known as the Astartes Praeses, devoted to keeping the Cadian gates secure. For centuries, they waged a tough and relentless war against the heretics and demons of the Eye of Terror, patrolling its western marches. The ferocious manner of war-making became a byword of ruthlessness and relentless punishment, treachery, and heresy. And they prided themselves on the cost they inflicted upon the forces of Chaos. They took their recruits from the homeworld of Silas, an imperial pharaoh world, whose tattooed tribes indulged in rites involving cannibalism. Their turn to Chaos is actually well documented, but unfortunately we do not have the time to go over it in this Vox.
Agreed, but perhaps you could do one of your little boxes about them?
For once I'm in complete agreement with you, brother. My next Vox is about the first pacification of Luna, but after that I will give a full counting of the fall of the Sons of Malice. But before we go, what do you think of this strange deity?
Well, really, it's a deity that isn't... It's kind of self-destructive.
It's very
in a way.
self-destructive.
One of the things I find interesting, though, is the fact that the Sons of Malice, who were fighting at the Eye of Terror, ended up apparently somehow falling to Chaos. Meanwhile, I believe Cadia's near the Eye of Terror, and the Cadians haven't. And they're regular humans.
Well, I think it's okay. So I will give some detailing, anyways, into the Sons of Malice, but I think a lot of it has to do with the simple fact, anyways, that Malice is so much different than the rest of the Chaos gods. The fact that he preys on the Chaos gods might be one of the reasons, anyways, why the Sons of Malice actually started fading that direction. Seems like they were pretty primitive to begin with, and this is just another way, anyways, that they can go kill, more Chaos people. I think it will be interesting to see, anyways, what part he'll play in the grand scheme of things. Because, anyways, so we've already talked about it. The Chaos gods, anyways, their whole goal is to conquer the material realm, right? And then destroy everything and then remake it.
Right.
Wonder what Malice's concept is, because if he's really killing off all the Chaos people, wonder what his aspect is or his thought process is. Is it just simply self-destruction? Is that really what he is?
Well, it seems like it, at least from what I'm able to tell.
Right. So, anyways, it seems kind of weird and wonder what will happen. I mean, anyways, at some point, anyways, all four of the Chaos gods will band together again, anyways, and start yet another Black Crusade, right? And one of them eventually is going to wipe out everything. That's the whole point. Unless the Tyranids get to it first. But, which, by the way, we never really talked about, anyways, the Tyranids and how they deal with the whole Dark Chaos Gods thing, which is actually kind of interesting. But if they do start marching this way, anyways, I wonder how much Malice and his followers will actually end up helping the Imperium. Even if it's just like a little chink, anyways, and there's something, anyways, that ends up happening. Or maybe he'll just go off into the distance, anyways, and no one will ever really remember him. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know.
Well, if you would venture a guess.
I wouldn't guess.
Well, on that depressing note, that is all the time we have for today. Tune in next week when we get back to the Alpha Legion and ask the strange question: Are they really Chaos Space Marines?
Quite right, Yuxin. And for those listening, if you liked our Vox, please follow, subscribe, like, and comment.
Yes. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments or send them to our website at www.asharaka.com.
Yes, that's www.asharaka.com.
Indeed. And as always, this is Ekthar,
And Yuxin.
signing off.